The harsh truth is this: the more you chase, the more she runs. The more you care, the colder she gets. And the moment you make her your priority, she stops seeing you as a prize. I know it sounds backwards, but it's exactly how female psychology works. And if you don't understand this now, you'll keep wondering why the woman you treated best ended up treating you the worst. You've probably heard this advice before. Just treat her right. Be the good guy.
Show her you care. But here's what nobody tells you. When a man makes a woman the center of his world, when he constantly gives without ever pulling back, something in her switches. Respect fades, attraction dies, and before you know it, she's pulling away, confused by her own feelings. This video breaks down exactly why that happens, the psychology behind it, and how to make sure it never happens to you again. The more effort you put into her, the less effort she puts into you. It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? You'd think that caring more would make her care more. You'd think that being available, attentive, loving, generous would only make her feel lucky to have you. But in reality, that's not how it plays out. Not with most women. Not in the real world. Instead, the moment you start giving her everything without making her earn anything, the respect begins to fade. She might not even realize it consciously, but she feels it, and slowly, her behavior changes. She becomes colder, more distant, and you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? Here's what you did wrong. You made her your priority before she earned that spot. And look, this isn't about playing games or being toxic. This is about understanding the way attraction actually works, not how you wish it worked. Most men get trapped in this mindset that if they just love harder, try harder, care more, she'll finally reciprocate. But the truth is, women don't fall in love with effort. They fall in love with energy.
With the way a man makes them feel. And a man who's always available, always chasing, always giving, he doesn't create excitement. He creates predictability. And predictability is boring. Let me give you a real example. Think of a guy named Chris. Good guy, nice personality, decent job. He meets a woman he's really into. From day one, he's all in. He replies to every text within seconds. He drops his plans whenever she asks. He tells her how amazing she is every chance he gets. To him, this is what being a good man looks like. He's doing everything he believes a woman would want. But 2 weeks later, she's ghosting him. She says things like, "You're great, I'm just not ready," or "I'm not feeling a spark." And Chris is sitting there shocked, because in his mind, he gave her everything. But that was the problem. She didn't have to work for any of it. He gave her the boyfriend treatment before they even had a real connection. Before she even
showed that she deserved that level of investment. And deep down, whether she says it or not, she can't fully respect a man who doesn't respect himself enough to pace things. A woman doesn't respect a man who's more invested in her than he is in his own life. You might think being obsessed with her is romantic, but to her, it feels like pressure. It feels like weakness. And women are biologically wired to test a man's strength, especially emotional strength. Now here's where things get even trickier. A woman might actually be into you at first. She might be excited. She might flirt, engage, talk about the future. But the moment you cross that line from confident to clingy, from attentive to obsessed, something switches in her brain. She starts noticing little things that bother her. She becomes less affectionate. She suddenly needs more space, and you keep trying harder, thinking she just needs more reassurance. But the harder you try, the faster she slips away.
It's like holding sand in your hand. Squeeze too tight and it all falls through. And that's the brutal irony most guys don't understand. You lose her by trying not to lose her. You lose her by making her the center of your world too early. A man who lives like that is saying, without using words, I need you to feel okay. I need you to validate me. I need you to like me so I can like myself. And there is nothing attractive about that. A woman wants to feel like she's part of something amazing, not like she is the amazing thing. She wants to feel pulled into your world, not like she's being worshipped like a goddess on a pedestal. The second she feels like she's doing you a favor by being there, the respect is gone. And here's the key thing that most men overlook. Once a woman loses respect for you, there's almost no coming back. You can try to be colder, to pull away, to rebuild attraction. But if she's already filed you mentally as the guy who needs her too much, it's hard to reframe that. That's why understanding this early is so important.
It's not about being cold or detached. It's about being grounded in yourself. You lead with confidence, but you don't chase. You're kind, but you're not overly available. You give her attention, but not at the expense of your purpose. That's what makes her lean in. That's what makes her admire you. Because the reality is, women don't just fall for what a man says or does. They fall for how he holds himself, how he manages his time, how he responds when she pulls away, how he reacts when things don't go his way. That's when her subconscious kicks in and says, okay, this man is different. Not because you bought her flowers, not because you sent her a long message about your feelings, but because you have emotional discipline, because you value yourself enough not to give it all away up front. Now think about it like this. Respect and attraction go hand in hand, but they don't grow from the same soil.
Attraction can spark from chemistry, looks, charm, or the vibe you bring into a room. But respect, that's earned through how you carry yourself, through the boundaries you set, through how much control you have over your own emotions. And unfortunately, most guys give that control away the moment they start liking a woman. They start adjusting everything to fit her schedule, her moods, her preferences. They start explaining themselves too much, over-justifying why they did this or that, constantly checking in or asking if she's okay. And what they don't realize is that they're not building closeness. They're slowly killing the attraction. Because here's what's really happening on a psychological level. She's testing. And
not in some manipulative or evil way. She's testing because she's wired to seek out a man who can lead, who can stay calm under pressure, who doesn't flinch every time things don't go his way. A man who still keeps his frame, no matter how beautiful she is or how much he wants her. And when she sees that you're bending over backwards just to keep her attention, she subconsciously feels like you don't have options, like you don't really value yourself. And if you don't value yourself, why should she? This is why some women say they want a nice guy, but they never seem to fall for one. It's not because being nice is unattractive. It's because those nice guys often act out of fear. Fear of losing her, fear of conflict, fear of being alone. So they avoid tension, they overcompensate, and they smother her with love she never asked for. Meanwhile, the guy who's a little more distant, a little more focused on his goals, who doesn't respond instantly, who says no when something doesn't feel right, that guy gets her attention. That guy feels like a challenge. He feels secure, and that's what hooks her. Not his looks, not his money, his emotional self-control. Let me give you another example. Imagine a woman goes on 2 dates in the same week.
one guy texts her 5 times after the date, says he had the best night ever, and asks when he can see her again. The other guy sends one casual message, says he enjoyed it, and then doesn't text for a few days. Who's she thinking about more? Who's she wondering about? The guy who disappeared into his own life. Not because he's trying to play games, but because he actually has a life. And that distance creates curiosity. Curiosity builds attraction. But the guy who's always there, always available, always checking in, she knows exactly where he stands. And once she knows that, there's nothing left to chase. This is the paradox a lot of men struggle with. The more you care, the more she pulls away. But it's not about not caring. It's about how you show that you care.
Women respect men who care from a place of strength, not from a place of need. If you're pursuing her because you like her and want to get to know her, fine. But if you're doing it because you need her validation, because you feel incomplete without her, because her attention is the only thing making you feel like a man, she can sense it. And even if she doesn't know exactly why, it turns her off. This is also why you see women staying with men who don't treat them perfectly, while walking away from guys who seem to do everything right. Because the man who does everything right usually does it because he's trying to please her. And deep down, that reads as insecurity. On the other hand, the man who's imperfect but unapologetically himself, who doesn't try to impress her, who sets his own pace and standards. He feels solid. He feels grounded. He's not bending over backwards to win her. And that's what actually makes her want to win him. And it's not even about being cold or detached. A man can be deeply loving and still respected. He can be caring and kind and romantic, but only if all of that comes from a place of abundance.
When he already knows his worth, when he's already centered, and when he's choosing her, not needing her. That's the difference. Women feel the difference. They can spot it a mile away. A man who's giving because he wants to, versus a man who's giving because he's hoping to be chosen in return. Now, when you start caring too much too soon, it also triggers another response in a woman's mind, one that's very hard to come back from. She starts to think, if he's this invested already, and we barely know each other, who else would he act like this with? It starts to feel less like romance and more like desperation. And the moment she senses you're trying to lock her down before there's even real connection or chemistry, she feels trapped. Not physically, emotionally. And that
makes her want to pull away even more, just to feel free again. So what's the alternative? How do you show genuine interest without losing your self-respect or pushing her away? You lead, but you don't chase. You're interested, but you're not obsessed. You give her your time, but not all your time. You express attraction, but not attachment. And above all, you remain calm, centered, and focused on your own life, whether she's in it or not. That's what creates polarity. That's what keeps the dynamic alive. When she feels like you're not trying to win her over, but that she's slowly winning you over. When a man starts to value his own time, energy, and emotional peace more than a woman's attention, everything changes. He stops reacting to every mood swing. He doesn't feel the need to explain himself after every little disagreement. He doesn't check his phone every 2 minutes hoping for a text back. Why? Because he's not dependent on her for emotional stability. He's emotionally full on his own, and that's exactly the kind of man a woman respects. That's the kind of man she looks at and thinks, okay, I can't play around with this one.
Because the moment a woman senses that you value yourself enough to walk away if necessary, she stops testing and starts investing. And this is where a lot of guys trip up. They think caring more will create connection. That being available all the time will make her feel secure. That doing everything for her will win her over. But what it actually does is take the air out of the room. There's no tension, no mystery, no challenge. She already knows you're there. She knows you'll say yes to anything. She knows you'll change your plans, your priorities, even your personality, just to keep her around. And that doesn't build comfort. It builds pressure. The pressure to carry the emotional weight of the relationship. The pressure to keep things interesting because you've already given
everything up front. So what happens? She starts to get bored, she starts to pull back, and the more she pulls back, the more you chase. And the more you chase, the less she respects you. Now let's make this more real. Think about two guys again. Guy A shows interest, but he's not overwhelming. He compliments her, but he's not over the top. He texts her, but he doesn't double text. If she takes too long to reply, he doesn't freak out. He continues with his life. And when they hang out, he listens, flirts, and has fun, but he doesn't try to force anything. He's there, but he's not trying to prove his worth. Now Guy B, he's all in after one date. He's texting constantly, sending long paragraphs, trying to have deep conversations she's not ready for. He brings gifts too soon, he talks about the future too soon, and he constantly needs reassurance. Even if she liked him at first, she starts feeling smothered. And guess what? She ghosts. Or she says, I'm not ready for anything serious. Not because she's not ready, but because you move too fast. This is the exact trap most guys fall into. They confuse intensity with intimacy. But real intimacy takes time. Real respect is built slowly.
And if you show all your cards too soon, you rob her of the experience of discovering you. You rob her of the opportunity to earn your interest, and whether she realizes it or not, that makes you less valuable in her eyes. You became too easy, too accessible. And unfortunately, people don't value what they don't have to work for, especially in dating. Now, does that mean you should be cold and distant and play hard to get? No. That's just manipulation in the opposite direction. What it means is, You need to stay balanced. Be warm, but grounded. Be available, but not always. Give her attention, but don't center your life around her. Keep your purpose at the core.
That's where your power comes from. That's what keeps your energy magnetic. Because here's the truth. A woman respects a man who respects himself. A man who doesn't overgive, over-explain, or over-apologize. A man who doesn't lose his identity just because he wants to be loved. And sometimes, the hardest lesson to learn is this. Pulling back can create more attraction than leaning in. Silence can be more powerful than chasing. Letting her wonder, letting her miss you, letting her reach out first. Those moments matter because they reset the dynamic. They give her space to reflect, to think about you, to realize your absence. And if she's truly interested, that silence won't push her away. It'll draw her closer. But if she wasn't really into you to begin with, that space will just expose it sooner. And that's a win for you either way. Why? Because you're not out here trying to convince someone to want you. You're out here choosing who's deserving of your energy. The moment you stop acting like you need her, everything shifts. Your body language changes. Your tone changes. Your decision-making changes. And most importantly, your mindset changes. You're no longer acting from fear, you're acting from abundance. And women feel that.
They feel the difference between a man who's centered and a man who's chasing, and they respond accordingly. They either rise to meet you where you are, or they walk away. And if they walk, good. Let them. Because a woman who leaves because you respected yourself was never the right one anyway. You have to remember that attraction isn't logical, it's emotional. It's not about how much effort you put in or how nice you are. It's about how you make her feel. And what makes a woman feel drawn to a man isn't his endless love and
availability. It's his strength. His ability to say no. His willingness to walk away when something doesn't align with his values. His refusal to be controlled by attention, beauty, or emotional games. That kind of man is rare. And rare always equals valuable. Most guys never become that man because they're scared. Scared of losing her. Scared of being alone. Scared of being misunderstood. But fear makes you predictable. And predictable is boring. Predictable is unattractive. A man who's grounded in himself doesn't operate from fear. He operates from choice. If she
pulls away, he doesn't beg. If she disrespects him, he doesn't argue. He distances. And if she takes him for granted, he simply stops showing up. That response is powerful. That response forces her to think, to wonder, to question herself, because she just realized she can't manipulate you emotionally like other guys. She realized you're not emotionally dependent on her validation. That's when curiosity turns into respect. That's when respect turns into attraction. And that's when attraction becomes real. Now let's be real about this. Some women aren't going to like that shift. If they were used to you always being available, always saying yes, always chasing, they're going to test you when you change. They'll get cold. They'll try to guilt trip you. They'll say, "Well, you've changed," or "You don't care anymore." But that's the exact moment where most guys break.
They fall back into old habits just to keep the peace. But you don't fold. You understand that respect comes before affection. That desire comes from tension, not comfort. That love without boundaries is just emotional slavery. So instead of panicking when she pulls back, you do the opposite. You lean into yourself. You focus more on your work, your goals, your fitness, your circle. You rebuild your center, because the more centered you are, the less external validation you need. And ironically, the more centered you become, the more magnetic you appear. People, not just women, are drawn to self-respect. They're drawn to those who don't chase attention, but effortlessly command it. And that's what you're becoming, not a man who needs to be chosen, but a man who chooses. The truth is, the more you try to hold on to someone, the faster they slip through your fingers. But when you let go, when you stop trying to control the outcome, that's when people come back on their own. That's when a woman starts wondering why you stopped chasing, why you're suddenly harder to access, why you seem unfazed, And that confusion is powerful, because now she wants to figure you out. Now she starts putting in effort. Now she wants your approval. But this only happens when you break the cycle. When you stop thinking that more attention equals more affection, that more investment equals more return. Because relationships don't work like banks. You don't deposit 100 good deeds and expect emotional interest. You build value by being valuable. You earn respect by respecting yourself first. You don't get love by giving endlessly. You get love by standing tall and being a man she can actually admire. Not for how much you care, but for how strong you are, especially when it's hard to be. So if you're a guy who's been caring too much, always giving, always available, always trying to prove yourself, take this as a wake-up call. That's not strength. That's fear dressed as love. And it's time to kill that version of yourself, the needy version, the desperate version, the version who lives for her validation instead of his own purpose. Because that version will never be respected. That version will always be replaceable. And deep down, you already know that. You don't need to stop caring. You just need to care differently. Care from a place of calm, not chaos. Care from a place of control, not codependence. Give, but don't give up your power. Love, but don't lose your self-respect. Because when you master that balance, that's when she can't stop thinking about you. That's when you stay on her mind even when you're not around. That's when she starts chasing you. Not because you manipulated her, but because she respects you. She admires you. And deep down, she knows you're not like the rest. Watch the next video. To the new era of video creation with HeyGen. Simply type your script to get started.